Good morning, everybody. It's Lloyd Stokes here from Sourced, and welcome to our new podcast. This is F'ing Hard, which is a new collaboration with myself and Martin Sutton at 10x Ventures. The aim of this podcast is to tell the real story of what it's really like to try and scale a business. Speaking to people who are either doing it right now or have done it, and hopefully get to unearth some of those hidden gems, those insights, those bits of knowledge that really stand out, and understand the characteristics of maybe what it takes to be somebody who really succeeds and thrives in that kind of environment. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Aisha Tummon. Aisha is somebody I've had the pleasure of knowing now for, I think, probably about 18 months. I'll let her do a kind of deep dive into her background and her career, but fundamentally, she is the CRO of a business called Orbital, who are scaling fast, UK-based, launched recently in the US. Aisha, thank you for joining me. And perhaps just to start, you could give everyone a little bit of background on you and I guess your career journey, where you started, and a little bit more around what's going on at Orbital right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here, Lloyd. Can't believe it's been 18 months. So yeah, as you said, I'm CRO here at Orbital. Have been with the business about 5.5 years, or coming up on 5.5 years. So I joined in December 2019, and I feel like I've grown up with the business. So I joined as first sales hire. We were about 7 or 8 people, so like super early stage. And yeah, it's been a journey since then. So it was obviously like 360 role, doing everything from a new biz perspective. And then it gradually started to grow. So started to build out the sales team, then eventually took on customer success, then started to work with the marketing team. Now we have RevOps, so just look after all of our commercial operations. And it's been, yeah, a fun but a wild ride. I
Well,
suppose in terms of my, sorry,
go for it.
in terms of my background, I started my career as a lawyer, so I was a corporate lawyer, private equity M&A lawyer for Clifford Chance for my sins, and yeah, I couldn't hack it. Really, yeah. No, honestly, I was going a tangent now. My friend sent me an Instagram video today. He was like sending it into the WhatsApp group that we have, and I don't know if people follow the Times, but there was like a profile of a lawyer on there, and she was like, I worked for a silver circle firm. I was working like 14-hour days. My boyfriend was like, what's going on? She's like, thought about banging my wrist with the hammer so I could break my two wrists so I wouldn't have to type anymore. So it just literally, and I was like, that
Okay.
kind of resonates with me. I remember being like, if I just got a bit of a nudge from like a car and I was put into hospital, but not seriously, then that would be a relief. So it's the kind of very intense environment that is not very enjoyable, as you can imagine. And I loved it a lot of the time. I worked with amazing people. I did some really interesting work, but I was like, this is just not the life for me. I want a life outside of this. And then I didn't know what to do after that. I looked into like management consulting, like all the usuals. Will I do an MBA? All of that nonsense. No offense to anyone who's done an MBA, but yeah, this is going to get real controversial. All my opinions, and
Let's
then
go.
yeah, and then I decided like I just wanted to like work somewhere fun, ambitious. Then I realized it was kind of like more about the company, and I came across a business called Tessian, who really fortunately were hiring like ex professional service people into sales roles, and I did not have a clue like what a sales role was in a tech startup. I barely knew what a tech startup was, but I was like, I'm used to working with super smart, ambitious, driven individuals, and it felt like they were building that kind of team over there as well, and they absolutely were. And I just went for it. And I remember having a call with Eva, who was, I think, ops at the time, but also actually a lawyer. And she did like my first interview. And she was saying, oh, we've got a few roles. We've got a business development manager, which was like the sales role. We've got a customer success manager, which was like a CS role. And I genuinely didn't know like really what either of them were. And I remember thinking, oh, business development sounds terrifying and also exciting. I'll apply for that one, which was amazing. And testing was an amazing place. So I joined them just as they raised their Series A, and left them a little bit after Series B, which was only around an 18-month journey, but like a really exciting time, and learned loads there and worked with amazing people. And then they were at that kind of journey between B and C when somebody approached me about Orbital, another legal tech business, smart people, ambitious, trying to do something different. And I was like, yeah, I'll give that a whack. And yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
That making that move from working in such a big business, yeah, Clifford Chance, Was that an easy decision to make?
Yes and no. I knew early on that it wasn't going to be for me long term. I remember being a trainee in Sao Paulo, which was amazing in so many ways. And I went out with another trainee called Salome, who was incredible. And both of us were, is this really the right role
Mm.
for us? But you don't really want, I'm not a quitter. I wasn't going to quit as a trainee. I knew there were loads of other options within the firm, but it was brewing. And that was maybe in my like first 18 months, but I didn't leave until kind of 2.5 years later, I would say. So it's been brewing in the background for a while. So the final decision was scary, but it wasn't that difficult. It was
Yeah.
like, this is an inevitable outcome. Yeah.
Had it always been the plan for you to get into law? So when you were growing up, what did you want to do?
Oh God, I think I wanted to be a teacher. I'm laughing
Okay.
now because I think I'd be the worst teacher possible. But I'm Irish, as you obviously know, Lloyd, and in Ireland you do your leaving cert, which is like your A levels, and there's like a system where you rank the courses that you want to do, like one, two, three, four, five, I can't remember, but and you then get points based on your exams. But if you get enough points for your number one, you have to take that course. You've no other choice. Like the way that it goes, you can't say, oh no, actually I want to do number two, even if you had enough points for it. So you have to be very
I
really
didn't know that.
yeah. So you have to be very sure as to what you want to do. And I had teaching down as number one.
At 16?
Yeah, 17,
Yeah, okay.
17. Yeah,
Okay.
16, 17, yeah. So I
Yeah.
had teaching down as number one, and I remember submitting it, and there was like a paper, show my age now, it's like a paper-based application and a non-based application at the time. And I remember being like, oh shit, I don't want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like literally after I'd submitted it and called the woman, and she was like, she basically fudged it for me, and she was like, if you tell me you haven't received the paper form yet, then I can change it for you. And I was like, yeah, I haven't received it yet. So she changed it, and I ended up doing one Spanish, which was broader, I think, because once you go on that teaching track, it feels like that's it for a lot of
Yeah, of
people.
course.
Um, and then, yeah, I did the law degree, and then I decided, oh, I don't know what I want to do next. So I did what like every Irish person at that time is doing, and I went to Australia to find myself. Did I find
Yeah.
myself? No. Came back, moved to Madrid for a few months, and then I thought, okay, I don't know how to do anything else, so I'll just go and do law. And I'll remember, this is probably really embarrassing, but I also didn't have a clue around like what the big law firms were, like the whole ecosystem. And I'll never forget sitting on my bed in Madrid and like Googling best law firms and like Wikipedia, and the magic circle came up, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to give that a whack. So started to apply for those jobs. Yeah, it sounds mad now when I think about it.
Do you know what though? I think it's more mad. Like I'm genuinely more, I don't think scared's the word, but I find it really unusual when I interview people who are just out of uni and maybe quite, yeah, early 20s, who have just got their shit together and like they know. Sometimes you question like where that knowledge comes from, because I just remember what I was like, and I know that the vast majority of it's. I don't think it is embarrassing. I think it's fairly normal to be able to say I didn't actually know who the big law, because why would you? Like if you've not had that, if you've not been surrounded by that industry and maybe
Yeah.
family members. Some people, often actually, the people who scare me when you actually dig into it, their parents are in that sector, or they know that with their family. They've grown up in it, so they're very familiar, like overly familiar with it. But I think also the counter to that is, I think it's quite a brave thing, because when you talk to people early, yeah, just young people out of university, and they go to the big four consulting or the big law firms or the big investment banks, you can imagine, especially if maybe no one in their family's done it before, their family around them are saying, I think they're the best, they're doing the best thing ever. They're so proud of them. And then to say, oh, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go and work for a technology firm that no one's ever heard of, doing a role that no one really understands, that is a massive step to take, when the obvious route is just stay the course and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're Irish. My mother was like, what the hell? Like in Ireland, like you're a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, like and you go to university for a career. So it's like you study law and you study medicine. And it's not like over here where you can study history and then become a lawyer or whatever. So I remember telling my mother, and she was like, you're mental. But it's worked out, thankfully. Touch wood.
It's worked out. Who's, I guess either earlier on, it doesn't matter actually, but from a kind of career influence perspective, is there somebody or more than one person who's really influenced you the most?
I'm going to sound like a narcissist. I've got a few answers. Like myself, like honestly, myself and my friends. There's not like one person I can point to or somebody external. I think so much of my career has been like self-directed and like I've just been pushing myself to do more. And actually, outside of myself, it's been friends that I have had for years and also friends that I've met over the years, particularly when I moved to London, who are, you can do this. Like we used to say to ourselves, like, you're fucking awesome. That's what we used to say to ourselves when we were doing the LPC, like studying to get into a law job or whatever. And then like when you say that to yourself and hear it over and over again, you start to think, yeah, I actually can do this. So it was less like, I don't know, Elon Musk or one of those nut jobs, and more around the kind of belief that you can get that job or get into that position. And that came from like me and my close friends, being completely honest.
I love that. Manifestation
Yeah, exactly.
is
Believe,
talked a
receive,
lot
and all of
now.
that.
Yeah, no, it's true though, right? I'll tell you this quickly because you obviously know Nathan in our team who's done some work with you. He tells this story of when he was at school before exams and stuff. He'd look at himself in the mirror and he'd say, "I'm Nathan De Silva. I'm Nathan De Silva. I'm Nathan."
That is
And
so good though.
if he ever faced a challenge, he'd be like, "Come on, I'm Nathan De Silva." He's going to love the fact that I shared that story, by the way, because I remember when he told us. But
And the
it
power
works for
poses and
him
all of that. Yeah, the power poses.
completely.
I remember actually doing a power pose in like a Pret Lou before going into the test scene interview and like standing there like a total lunatic with your hands on your hips. But like it works.
Definitely works. Definitely works. So tell us more about the journey that Orbital have gone on in terms of like when you started, where you are now, and what the plans are.
Yeah. So when I started, as I said, we were about 7 or 8 like full-time employees in a little tug in Holborn. And now we are about 75 people. We're not too far from the tug in Holborn. We're in Farringdon. And we're now also opened up in New York over there, which is very exciting. The journey we've gone on has been, I'd say, pretty typical of a VC-backed SaaS startup. They're like pre-seed, seed, Series A about 2 years ago now, and probably going to raise a Series B in the next not too distant future. We now have 3 products. We started off with one product, and then with the kind of launch of ChatGPT and OpenAI, we were really fortunate that Andrew, our CTO, who's fantastic, saw the opportunity. We'd always been trying to build AI in the background, and like we'd made some good progress, but like the advent of LLMs just completely transformed the way that the whole tech industry is operating. And I guess Andrew had the confidence and the belief that we could almost like scrap everything we were doing on the kind of machine learning and AI side and start again with
Wow.
this
Okay.
LLM technology for these new products. And we did, and it was a bet that like absolutely paid off, and we took it early, which I think was key. Yeah, we've got our original product, Orbital Witness, which is for UK real estate professionals, particularly in the legal space. And we've got 2 other kind of AI products, one in the resi space, which helps conveyancers with their resi conveyancing, and then
Yep.
Copilot, which is across commercial real estate teams in the UK and the US. So yeah, it's been a journey. It sounds like super straightforward, but there have been lots of bumps in the road
Yeah.
along the way.
What's been the biggest bump?
I don't
One.
know. There've been so many. The biggest, I don't know. I remember like I joined in December 2019 as the first sales hire. And then March of 2020, which was very early in my journey, like the whole world went into lockdown.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
was like, what the F? Like, I'm here to deliver like revenue and growth. And like, we don't even know if we're like ever going to be allowed outside the house again. So that was really scary. I wouldn't say it was our biggest bump because things did shut down, but we actually ended up doing like relative to our stage, like quite well. We never had to let anyone go. We never put anyone on furlough, that kind of thing. So that was really nice to be able to keep the
Yeah. Yeah.
team close together. I guess there just have been like challenging periods. For example, like our original product Orbital Witness is very UK centric, and we're selling to like commercial real estate teams, and the market like honestly isn't massive. So we're on this journey, we're doing really well, we've got excellent PMF, but we're like, what is next? And then it was like God shone on us and gave us open AI, and then we realized we could build a product that opened up our TAM in a massive way. But I guess the journey before then would have been like quite challenging when we're trying to figure out like, how do we get more juice from this lemon? Is this it? Is there a ceiling on this business? These are all the questions that we were like thinking and talking about at a leadership level. So that is challenging. But I suppose when you look back now, it's all fine because like it's worked out. But I guess we could be on a very different journey now for sure.
Is there a lever or something that you've done during that journey where you can look back and go, we were at that point and we suddenly went at that point? So something that you thought there was a pivotal moment where you adopted something new or you changed something where you saw the results really start to see a significant uplift? Or has it been steady, continuous growth?
I think honestly, as a business, it was that moment. And I remember the moment so clearly. I was actually on maternity leave and I came back for a leadership meeting, and Andrew was talking about ChatGPT and OpenAI, and I was like coming out of this fog and I was like, what is this? But that decision to let go of 2-3 years of really hard work, like an entire team working on machine learning models, and like basically binning that and taking a bet on technology. Now we're like, yeah, it seemed obvious, but it wasn't back then. I think that was like a pivotal moment for the business. I'm trying to think, is there anything else maybe from like with my role and from my perspective? That's the thing that like really stands out to me, is the list for
the thing is though,
growth within Orbital.
It's a really brave decision to make, because I've worked, especially if you can view it through the lens of your position, I've worked with countless companies where the founders have just been steadfast in their belief that what they have is the right thing and they're not going to change it. And so what happens is that sales leader, founding AE, salesperson, that they gets to a point where they say, we've got a problem here because you think we've got the best technology, but we haven't. I'm being simplistic in that assessment, but I'm not saying that you wouldn't have had the success without it, but it sounds like it's fairly pivotal.
Yeah, it is. And I think the other thing, like being a non-founder, and I think you learn and you need to come to terms with kind of like over the years, and I've obviously been in the business for a while now. Imagine being a founder of a business. They started from nothing, like literally nothing. And you're there and you've got like 50 employees and you're doing really well. And your business is worth millions. And your business is genuinely worth millions. And then you're thinking, okay, do I risk it all? You know, I could walk away from this with a successful story, a pretty decent paycheck, like millions and millions of pounds, but do I risk it all for that bigger slice of the pie? And I think sometimes as a non-founder, you underestimate or underappreciate that decision that founders need to make on a constant basis when they're faced with these kind of opportunities.
Yeah. What have you found the most challenging aspect of working for first-time founders?
That's a really good question. I think working for first-time founders, they need to be convinced of everything because they've no experience of it being done before. So I'm not saying every idea is an amazing idea, but say a lot of what I do has been done. It's part of the story for any sales leader in an organization. Things are not, you have to bring the founder on the journey for everything that you're doing because they've done it before. So there's like more effort in trying to get them on board with basically everything, or things that you would consider like market. They have to be convinced as to like why it's market or like why it's important.
I interviewed some. No, I am, because we have many conversations that, between you and I, that then an understanding and managing expectations. And I also interviewed somebody last week who said, they gave me one easy example where he said that educating the founders that a kind of 33% win rate to pipeline was pretty good. and getting them to understand that we couldn't close 100% of our pipeline because they were like,
Yeah.
why not? Why can't we close 100% of our pipeline? And that was just a really easy way to summarize a part of the challenge. I know so many ideas that you've brought to the table have been hugely successful, but is there anything that you've done where you thought it would really work and it's just completely tanked?
Oh God. Genuinely, I feel like I've been around for so long. There are just so many examples. Anything that I thought that would really work that completely tanked. Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head, Lloyd, like loads, but I'm trying to think so many things at times. Like, actually, thinking of one now, pricing models. Like, we have made a balls of so many different pricing models. A lot of them would have been on my shoulders as well. Yeah, and we have some really patient customers who have been
Yeah.
around the houses on them as well. But for example, we used to have like consumption-based pricing model on our very original product, and it just got so complicated, and I was like, this is going to be it. Lawyers work in like projects and matters, they bill their clients for those projects and matters, they want to pay us in projects and matters, and it completely tanked, which was great because it felt like the other option, which is just like a SaaS, like annual subscription, was much more difficult because you have to get the upfront
Yeah.
investment. And we were hearing from the lawyers, no, we want the other model. So we had to refuse to listen to them and pivot that way. But it's been transformational for the adoption and the success of the product in the long term. Yeah, I'm glad it failed.
It's given your position, your responsibility, which will obviously from when you started to today has only increased in terms of, and will continue to do, the decisions that are on your shoulders. What do you do to keep some kind of level of sanity, normality? Like, how do you process things in a way that keeps you, I guess, making the right decisions and also moving forward?
Great question. We sell software. It's not that deep. Like, it's okay. No, seriously. And I think when you get stressed out, that's what I just say to myself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
what's the worst that can happen? And I think being in like a fast growth kind of high velocity environment, and especially for a few years, you can look back and like you can make loads of mistakes and it's absolutely fine. So just, I'm all about just like making a decision and moving on. But yeah, like I suppose my background as a lawyer gives me a little bit of perspective. I remember being responsible for like billions of pounds and like where it goes and like making sure transactions getting over the line, and like literally sweating all night in bed thinking that I've put like the wrong digit on the wrong contract or whatever. And I don't have that like existential like dread any longer. So yeah, it's all a lot easier after that.
I was laughing because I have a thing that I say semi regularly in our office when stuff goes wrong. And I'm like, don't worry, guys, it's just recruitment. Recruitment. If somebody says no to the offer, there'll be somebody else that will say yes. It's not, you can catastrophize, I think, things. And actually, most of the time, it's not worth it. There's a balance, I know. But I think, yeah, that's definitely my view. It's definitely my view. What do you think is the biggest? I have this question because I love answering it, but yeah, I love answering it and I love asking it. I love answering my own question. That sounds a bit. What do you think is the biggest load of BS that you've seen, heard, or you hear people put out there when it comes to scaling a technology company that you just think that's just not true?
Oh, good question. I guess maybe I'll answer it in a slightly different way. I see who idolize, and I know like I mentioned like people like Elon Musk or Sam Altman or particular founders, and they think whatever they say, absolute quality gold. But like half
Mm.
of it is luck and being in the right place at the right time. So I think like being obsessed with a particular individual and thinking that they have all the answers. Yes, they might have been incredibly successful, but they don't have all the answers, and replicating exactly what they're saying is definitely not going to get you there. So I think that's all a load of horse shit. Sorry. You just have to kind
I
of
love the honesty there.
yeah, and I see people and their ideas come from what one of those guys has said, and you're like, oh, get a grip. So I think that's definitely, in my view, A lot of
Yeah.
bullshit. And then also, I think the experience trap is like a really big one. And it's not to say that experience isn't valuable, but I see, and not just in my, not really like in my business, because I've been really fortunate. I didn't have a huge amount of experience coming into Orbital, but a lot of my friends are in startups and are founders, etc. And you get it like your first round of investment, then you get some more serious investors on board, and they're all like, you need the gray hair or the really tenured CVs in
Mm.
business. And I've just seen them fail. People also can be lucky in terms of you join one startup that does really well, then you go to the next one. If that also does really well, it really doesn't matter how good you are. You're on that like really nice journey of people expecting you to be amazing because you've been in those great companies. So I
Yeah.
think that experience trap is like a big one that people can fall into.
I definitely agree. I think also somebody I spoke to recently said, beware of the people who believe that the success was driven so much by them and not by the product or the technology that they were selling. And their experience was of just having met people who, when you dug down into it and said, why did you have that success? They were like, it was me. It was me. This is what I did. And this is why we, and the reality is so much of it was actually just probably good making good choices, like joining the right company
Yeah.
at the right time with the right people and the right products. That's really it. Like that's really, there's more to it, of course there is, but thinking that too much of the success has been built on one person's shoulders is probably something to be concerned about.
Yeah.
But that's it's definitely in line with what you said as well. Given that we're in the technology space, what tech do you use? Is there anything that you personally use or that you use within the business that's been like absolutely game changing?
I'm so basic, but I'm
Apart from
obsessed with
TikTok.
ChatGPT. Yeah, I like TikTok too, but I don't use that at work. Even though TikTok is good for like hints on how to better prompt ChatGPT, but I genuinely use ChatGPT for everything. My husband Luca says you're obsessed with ChatGPT and your PA. There, every time I look at you, you're talking to one of those. I'm like voice noting it. I'm getting it to create documents for me, like everything. I think it's fantastic. So pretty basic, but I still think lots of people are not using it in the way that they could be. And if you're lazy like me, it's amazing. Like it can do so much for you that you don't want to do. So that's been a game changer for me in the last year,
One
being
thing that
able
you
to
use
use
it
it.
for specifically, like one thing where you're just like, before you didn't and now you do, and it's just saves you so much time.
I honestly use it for so many things. I'll literally just talk to it. So I'll be like, say you're really busy in a day and you're like, okay, I have an idea. I want to, I don't know, think about how I'm going to execute on the US go to market plan. But
Yep.
like, you don't have time to sit down and do it. I'll just start
Yep.
talking to it and give it like all my stream of consciousness and be like, create a to do list off the back of that. And then I can come back to it later and you can keep adding to it for things like that. Really simple things like creating documents. I'll like fire in a load of email addresses and I'll be like, this is my whole team, sort that out. All the kind of small fiddly bits.
Yeah.
It's not very good at counting, so I wouldn't rely on it for that. But
Yeah.
I think a
Okay.
lot of the like low level administrative tasks that I would normally probably just not do,
Yeah.
um, it does for me. Yeah.
That's really good advice, actually, because we use it increasingly as everyone does more. But I'm still somebody who, as I'm going through the day or the week, if I come up with ideas or things that I think about, and my brain, just the way it works, is all over the place a lot of the time. So I tend to be somebody who historically used to write everything down. So
Yeah,
write
me
down the
too.
things. And then what I did was I still write stuff down, but then I also have a to-do list that I have in Slack, for example, which has got some things, but then that's subcategorized. But it's not in one place. And so I can be on the move or doing something. And actually that's a really good bit of advice. The idea of just being able to use it as a kind of like voice note taker to then summarize your thoughts. And then
Yeah.
that makes sense. Because otherwise I'm either forgetting it or I'm sending myself like a long-winded message to remind it, and it just okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
helpful.
exactly. And I've heard people describe it as like, it's really good to get over writer's block, which I think is exactly it. So like it might not have all the answers for you, but it'll get that first draft out. So
Yeah.
yeah, like any plan that you're coming up with. And I use it internally to argue my case. You were talking about having to convince founders that good
Mm-hmm.
idea, and we're very open to using ChatGPT. So it's I've used ChatGPT for this. You don't have to hide behind it, but
Yeah,
I'll read it and I'll be like, yeah, that makes sense, or I'll add to it, and then there you go. Why reinvent the wheel?
love that. If someone's in your stage of your career when you joined Orbital, let's say they're joining a business at that stage in a kind of like founding sales role, founding AE,
Yeah.
founding sales lead, whatever, what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd give them?
Great question. It's something I was not necessarily what advice I would give to somebody, but it's something I was talking to Will, CEO here at Orbital, about a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about a candidate that we'd interviewed who asked us some like really insightful questions. And one thing that I've realized over the years is, especially as an very early stage hire, to build out that function, you think you need to do everything yourself. But like over the years, either things won't get done or they won't get done very well, or I'll just because I think I need to do them. So as the business grows and there's more support, I should be looking around and being like, okay, that person can do that, or this person can help me do that, or and they'll do a better job. But there's something in being in that role where you are doing everything yourself in the early days that it's harder for me to let things go and pass things on, because I feel like then I'm doing a bad job if I'm not doing it, which I don't think actually is the case. And it's only having more people join the business in like at a similar level to me, and I see they're not doing everything themselves. So I don't have to either.
I think there's a thing as well of the stage. You might hire somebody for a particular role, but they might actually have a background and experience of doing a few different things. And they may have skills and experience that they could do outside of the role they've just been hired for that you could utilize. I'll give a really simple example for our business. Nathan, I'm talking a lot about Nathan in this. It's not a podcast about Nathan.
Love Nathan.
He did graphic design. So he like out of school, he went to college and did graphic design. Didn't finish his degree. He knows graphic design. When we like a few years back wanted to start doing stuff, he was like, I can do all that. And I'm happy doing that. And then because probably for technology companies who are raising investment, they might find different ways of doing that or find somebody to bring in. And certainly Nathan is a balancing act between still doing his full-time job. But the reality is in half an hour, he was able to mock up 3 or 4 things that looked really very good that we didn't have to go and pay for. And also I could have spent, it would have taken me about 3 or 4 days to create what he created. So I think a lot of companies probably don't utilize enough of the resource that's already, the knowledge that's already in the company.
Yeah, completely. To give an example, I was doing all of our legal contracts up until about a year ago, just over a year ago. We still don't have full-time legal resource. And when people have a question, they'll come to me. So there's value outside of like exactly what you're hired for, especially if people who've had like different careers before joining, for sure.
Completely agree. Aisha, thank you so much. That is a whistle stop, just over 30 minutes review of where you've been, what you're doing, obviously having huge success at Orbital, and shared some like really interesting nuggets of information, and also of course reflected on the fact that it's not always as easy as people think it will be, with a lot of bumps and challenges in the road. But look, I really appreciate you giving your time, and hopefully everyone enjoys listening to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lloyd. Next time over a wine for sure.
We discussed that. Next time we'll get together and it will be with a glass of wine for sure. Thanks, Aisha.
Super, thank you.